The vanishing track. It was a crisp winter evening in the small town of Millhaven. Jackson, a seasoned train conductor with over 20 years of experience, was preparing for his final route of the night. The route, known as the Iron Vale, passed through the dense pine ridge forest, an area infamous for strange occurrences and whispered legends passed down through generations. Locals often avoided the forest at night, but Jackson dismissed their tales as mere superstition. To him, it was just another shift. The train departed the station on time, its rhythmic chugging echoing into the night. The passengers settled into their seats, lulled by the steady motion. Jackson sat in the control cabin, sipping coffee and monitoring the gauges. As the train roared into the forest, the radio crackled with static. Jackson adjusted the dial, but instead of the usual dispatcher's voice, a chilling whisper came through. "Keep your eyes on the tracks." A chill ran down his spine, but he shook it off as interference. The frosty trees blurred past, and the rhythmic clatter of wheels was almost hypnotic. Halfway through the forest, the train's lights flickered. The engine sputtered, and then, without warning, the train came to a halt. Confused, Jackson stepped out to investigate. The air was unnervingly still, the kind of silence that felt oppressive. As he walked along the tracks, his flashlight beam caught something peculiar. The tracks behind the train had vanished, replaced by untouched snow. Heart-pounding, Jackson hurried back to the train. But as he climbed aboard, he noticed something was terribly wrong. The passengers were gone. Their belongings remained, eerily untouched. Open books, half-eaten snacks, and coats draped over seats. Panic set in as a low, guttural growl echoed from the woods. Jackson rushed to the control cabin, only to find the windows frosted over from the inside. Written in the frost was a single word: "Run." The growl grew louder, and shadowy figures emerged from the trees. They were humanoid but distorted, their limbs unnaturally long, and their faces obscured by shadows that seemed to writhe like smoke. Jackson threw the train into reverse, praying it would move. The engine roared to life and the train surged backward. As it exited the forest, the passengers reappeared in their seats, oblivious to what had happened. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the radio, calm as ever, instructing Jackson to proceed to the station. Yet, when Jackson glanced in the rearview mirror, the shadowy figures were still there, watching. For weeks after, Jackson couldn't shake the feeling that someone, or something, was following him. He began noticing shadows moving in his peripheral vision and hearing faint whispers when he was alone. One night, he awoke to find frost on his bedroom window, with the word "run" etched into it. Unable to bear the torment, Jackson eventually left Millhaven. But no matter how far he went, he'd occasionally see those shadows lurking just out of sight, a haunting reminder of the night he ventured through the Iron Vale. The Forgotten Labyrinth. Emma was an archaeology graduate student eager to make a name for herself. When she discovered an uncharted cave system in the Appalachian Mountains, she couldn't resist exploring it. She assembled a small team and descended into the labyrinth with flashlights, ropes, and a sense of adventure. The deeper they went, the more unnatural the cave felt. The walls seemed to pulse, as if alive. Strange symbols etched into the stone glowed faintly under their lights. Emma's excitement turned to unease when she realized the symbols depicted human figures trapped in the rock. Hours passed, and the group's map became useless. The tunnels shifted, leading them in circles. Suddenly, a team member screamed. Emma turned to see him being dragged into the darkness by something unseen. His flashlight clattered to the ground, illuminating a fleeting glimpse of a skeletal hand. Panic set in as the team scattered, trying to find a way out. Emma clung to her journal, scribbling notes to maintain her sanity. But one by one, her team disappeared. Alone, Emma stumbled upon a massive chamber. At its center was a stone altar, and on it lay a book bound in human skin. Against her better judgment, she opened it. The air grew heavy, and whispers filled the chamber. Shadows coalesced into humanoid forms, their hollow eyes fixed on Emma. She fled, the whispers growing louder, chanting her name. She eventually emerged from the cave, but her hair had turned stark white, and her eyes carried the terror of someone who had seen too much. The journal she clutched was filled with symbols she didn't remember writing. Years later, Emma became a recluse, haunted by nightmares of the labyrinth. Scholars who analyzed her journal claimed the symbols were warnings in an ancient language, but no one dared to return to the cave to confirm its secrets. What Emma didn't reveal to anyone was that the labyrinth hadn't let her go completely. Every night, the whispers returned, calling her back. One evening, she disappeared from her small cabin, leaving behind only her journal, open to a page that read, "The labyrinth never forgets." The silent playground. In a quiet suburban neighborhood, there was an abandoned playground known as Hollow Field. Local legend claimed that children who played there at night never returned. Most dismissed it as a ghost story, but Marcus, a skeptical journalist, decided to investigate. One moonless night, Marcus entered the playground armed with a camera and a flashlight. The equipment felt heavier than usual, and the air was thick with a metallic tang. As he stepped onto the sand, the swings began to creak, though there was no wind. His flashlight flickered, and he caught glimpses of small footprints forming in the sand. Yet no one was there. He heard laughter, faint but chilling. Marcus turned to see the merry-go-round spinning on its own. He raised his camera, but the viewfinder showed children playing, children who weren't visible to the naked eye. Panic surged as one of the children in the camera turned to look directly at him, its eyes hollow and black. The laughter grew louder, distorted and menacing. Marcus ran, but the playground seemed to stretch endlessly. The equipment rusted and decayed before his eyes, the laughter morphing into agonized screams. Finally, he tripped and fell. When he looked up, the children surrounded him, their faces twisted into grotesque smiles. Marcus was found the next morning, sitting on a swing, muttering incoherently. His footage was intact, but every frame was black except for the children's eyes, which glowed faintly. Hollow Field was later fenced off by authorities, but locals still hear laughter on moonless nights, echoing from within. The footage Marcus captured became infamous online, though most dismissed it as a hoax. But anyone who dared to visit the playground after seeing it would return changed, their eyes haunted, and their laughter never quite sounding the same. The disappearance of the Baseline Killer's victim. In 2005, Phoenix, Arizona, was gripped by terror as a string of unsolved murders was linked to a man known as the Baseline Killer. Authorities were on edge, but it wasn't until one victim, a 21-year-old woman named Mia, disappeared under strange circumstances that a chilling pattern began to emerge. Mia was last seen at a gas station off Baseline Road late one evening. She was just getting out of her car when witnesses reported hearing a scream. A few minutes later, her car was found, the keys still in the ignition, but Mia was gone. What made this case even more bizarre was the strange phone call her family received the morning after her disappearance. It was a crackling, distorted message, with nothing but a voice whispering the words, "It's time to be free," before abruptly cutting off. Weeks went by, and investigators uncovered something horrifying. Mia's disappearance seemed eerily similar to other unsolved cases. Each victim had vanished without a trace, only to later be discovered in remote, desolate areas. The Baseline Killer's calling card wasn't just his brutal method of attack, but the strange, cryptic messages left behind on their cell phones. It was as though the victims were aware of their impending doom before they were taken. As investigators dug deeper into Mia's life, they found unsettling connections that painted an even darker picture. Mia's social media accounts had been hacked, and the last post she made just hours before she vanished seemed innocuous at first. A selfie in front of a local landmark, but closer inspection revealed something chilling. In the background of the photo, barely noticeable, was a figure lurking in the shadows, obscured by a large, dark hood. Could it have been the killer watching her all along? Mia's family, desperate for answers, continued to receive cryptic messages, but they were never able to trace the number. The more they learned, the more they realized that Mia was not the only one who had been unknowingly watched. They received a chilling warning in the form of an anonymous letter, written in a strange, slanted script that said, "You're next. The game is already in motion." Months later, a breakthrough came when Mia's remains were found in a rural desert area, not far from the site of the first known killing. But the most disturbing discovery wasn't just the method of her death. It was the fact that Mia's body had been staged in a way that mirrored the photos from her social media accounts, almost as though she had been carefully positioned by the killer before her death. The pattern was too deliberate to ignore. The baseline killer was never caught, and Mia's story became part of a string of unsolved disappearances, a constant reminder of how evil can linger unseen, and how even the most ordinary people can become part of a far darker reality. The unsettling feeling that Mia was watched long before she even knew it is a chilling thought, one that no one who knew her could ever escape.